The anthrax letters came out of our own. Remember, we're talking about officially acknowledged inside job. Our own so-called biodefense program. That's where it came from. That's where this technology is being developed that the FBI has so clumsily attempted to conceal. It took us 7 years to get them to say, in response to a demand from Congress, what the percentage weight of silicon was in the anthrax. It took them 7 years to reveal that. You can imagine what they did for 7 years. Lied. Said, well, we don't have that information, and, that's not so easy to determine, and all this silliness. And one of the remarkable things, I'll continue to tell the story as follows. One of the remarkable things is that just in the last 2 months, the Wall Street Journal, I don't know if they realized what they were publishing, but they put a 1,500-word op-ed in the January 24 Wall Street Journal, and this is what it says. First of all, it says what I've already referred to, which is that the FBI, Department of Justice, have been stonewalling on the presence of silicon in the attack anthrax for 7 years. It says it. And then it says, this is what we finally know. This is of such a high percentage of silicon that it had to have been deliberately added for the purpose of enhancing dispersibility. That's what this op-ed says. Now, what it doesn't take the additional step of doing is saying, okay, who can do this technology? I mean, that's the only thing that's missing from that op-ed. Who does this technology? A month later, February 24, New York Times, an article about how Dugway scientists have been occupied with trying to re-engineer, that is, reproduce, the attack anthrax. And what they say in this journal that's being quoted in this letter at the New York Times is that this is very, very high, military grade, requires super specialized equipment, etc. That's now mainstream. And wouldn't you know it, I've got to recount this. I hope I'm not asking too much of your listeners to follow this, but listen to this. It was like within days, we suddenly see the following. The House Select Intelligence Committee passes an amendment, I think probably was unanimous, that says that Amerithrax needs to be reopened. That is, the FBI DOJ investigation needs to be reopened. The entire country knows that. And then it adds, for the purpose of looking for possible foreign involvement. That's what it says. I write a column for the local newspaper. I referred to the amendment, which was introduced by my congressman here in Frederick, Congressman Roscoe Bartlett. I referred to it as an Orwellian amendment. And it was just at the point that everybody is beginning to realize what the deal here is, namely that this came out of our own anthrax weaponization projects. The Congress is suddenly going to reckon with the absurdity of Amerithrax up until now and devote us to looking for the foreign culprits. Let me remind everybody of something. They tried that at the beginning, remember? How did the letters read? Death to America, death to Israel, praise Allah. They also threw in, by the way, this is anthrax, take penicillin. This inside job, you have to understand, its purpose is not to kill a whole lot of people. The envelopes addressed to the senators, they were sealed with tape. Okay, so these are the kind of precautions that were taken. I mean, this was basically meant to generate fear and to further incriminate, to the extent possible, Muslim terrorists. Hence the language in the letters, hence a concerted campaign that Glenn Greenwald of Salon.com has been very focused on. A concerted campaign on the part of ABC News, with a whole lot of help from insiders, to pretend for months on end that this anthrax contained the additive bentonite, which is characteristic of the Iraqi anthrax program when it existed more than, call it 10 years before. And this was based on a complete fraud. and definitely figured into the run-up to the Iraqi war. So what are we describing here? When we deconstruct this, we're describing a system at work. And, President Eisenhower gave us, one phrase that we might sort of apply to naming this system. He referred to the military-industrial complex. Well, this is military, this is industrial, this is heavy-duty intelligence, and they're pursuing a bioweapons program regardless. They're committed to that regardless. It doesn't matter which administration it is. It doesn't matter what's going on in the realm of arms control. That's where they are. And yes, in 2001, what they saw fit to do was to send some of this super-grade anthrax, put them together with some Muslim terrorist-sounding letters, and pretend that this sequel to 9/11 was another reason for inaugurating the global war on terror. It also, at the same time, by design, stimulated a tremendous increase in so-called biodefense spending, which is now being spent as we speak on a program that has absolutely unmistakable biooffense components. No question. I mean, they've actually described it as that. They have said publicly, on the front page of the Washington Post included, that they are making bioweapons in this new program, whose pretext is the anthrax attacks. They are making bioweapons. They'll tell you that. They'll justify it on the basis of the need for anticipating possible biodefense mechanisms. In other words, we've got to create the weapon in order to figure out what vaccine might be useful against it, what antidote might work after infection. And, of course, as so many commentators gingerly point out, any country watching this views it as an express violation of the Bioweapons Arms Control Treaty. No one from outside looking at this has any doubt that we are engaging in bioweapons research. There's no doubt about it.
I'm speaking with attorney and peace activist Barry Kissin. Today's show, the anthrax attacks and the system that perpetrated them. I'm Bonnie Faulkner. This is Guns and Butter. On February 19th, 2010, the Associated Press reported, "Case closed. FBI says scientist was anthrax killer." And the scientist referred to was immunologist Bruce Ivins of Fort Detrick, who was listed as a suicide in 2008. So the anthrax investigation is over, and a lone nut did it, according to the FBI. Wasn't Bruce Ivins actually helping the FBI to solve the case?
Yes, Bruce was definitely involved in that. That's very clear. Right at the beginning, they focused on Fort Detrick. There's certainly expertise there and knowledge about these matters. And yes, Bruce was one of the scientists that they consulted in the process of trying to figure out what was at work here.
Well, now, who was Bruce Ivins?
Bruce Ivins is a scientist and immunologist, actually. I mean, his career is built around designing vaccines. And he was 30 years at Fort Detrick. I'll use the acronym USAMRIID. USAMRIID refers to the Army Biodefense Facility at Fort Detrick. And that has been the chief facility ever since we terminated, or supposedly terminated, I should say, our offensive biowarfare program, which would have been back in 1969. So Bruce Ivins has been there for a very, very long time, and he's very respected. And the other thing that this community, that the community that I live in, namely Frederick, understand Frederick is the home of Fort Detrick. This community knows Bruce Ivins. I didn't personally know Bruce Ivins, but I know a lot of people who do know Bruce Ivins, and they all understand this was a gentle, helpful, very decent human being. Did he have some psychological problems? Yes. They, without a doubt, were terribly exacerbated by the way he was treated for years by the FBI and the DOJ. So we certainly here don't have any, we know, including all the people working at USAMRIID, that Bruce Ivins had nothing to do with the anthrax letters.